to StudyBridge. So in this lesson, I'll show you how to think about atomic structure clearly and correctly. So you're not just memorizing, but also mastering the concept. So we can define an atom as the smallest unit of an element that retains a property. We can also define them as a basic building block of all matter. Okay, next we're going to look at the structure of atoms and also their components. Okay, this is the structure of the atom. Inside it is a nucleus that houses the proton and the neutron. This is the proton. This is the neutron. And orbiting it are the electrons, the red balls. They are orbiting the nucleus on their orbit. So the next thing we're going to look at is the components, each of them one by one. First one is a nucleus, because it houses the protons. Then inside the nucleus is the proton, which are positively charged, the neutrons, which has no charge, then the electron have a negative, and they are outside the nucleus, bit around the nucleus. Now, an atom can exist in two forms, in a neutral form and in an ion form. So let us look at the forms an atom can exist in. The first one is in a neutral form. The second is in an ion form, where it's either positively or negatively charged. So let's look at when an atom can stay to be in a neutral form. So in a neutral atom or in a neutral form, the number of electrons is equal to the number of protons, which is equal to the atomic number. Let me explain. For example, carbon has the atomic number 6. What does it mean? It means that the proton is 6, the neutron is 6, is 6. But of course, this can change in an ion, but we are not looking at that for now. So let's all focus on a neutral atom. The neutron can also change in the case of an isotope. Here, the proton is 6, the neutron is 6, the electron is 6. Of course, the neutron can change in the case of an isotope. The electron can change in the case of an ionic form. If it's positively or negatively charged, the electrons are going to change. But what doesn't change is the proton number. This is what determines the atomic number. So let's look at the ionic form of an atom. The second one we talked about is the ionic form. So let us look at an ionic form of an atom. So it's simple. If an atom gains an electron, it becomes a negative ion. If it loses electron, it becomes a positive ion. So it doesn't affect the atomic number. It doesn't affect the protons. It doesn't affect the neutron unless it's an isotope. Then, of course, we already said if it gains more electrons, it becomes a negative ion. If it loses, it becomes a positive ion. So this ionic form affects only the electrons. Of course, the number of protons never changes, so the atomic number never changes. So we're going to use a concept to describe this atom better. We're going to use a biological concept to describe these atoms better so that we can better understand it. This is a concept. Of course, this is what it is in chemistry, and this is what it will be in biology and not logic. An atom said is the smallest unit of an element. So its equivalent in biology is a cell, which is the smallest unit of life. So the element, collection of identical atoms, which we said in the beginning, its equivalent in biology is the tissues, which is a collection of cells. Then the molecule, these are two or more atoms that are bonded together. Its equivalent in biology is organs, which is a collection of identical tissues. Then the next one is a compound. This is a molecule of different elements that are bonded. Its equivalent in biology are systems, just like the nervous system, the cardiovascular system, the skeletal system. Of course, we're going to put it as organ system that is made up of different organs. Then the last one is matter. Of course, is everything. Everything that is made up of atoms and compounds. Of course, this is the body that is made up of cell. So that is it for today's class. In our next class, we'll look at isotopes. Look at what isotopes are. And then, of course, we're going to mention different elements and their isotopes. So till next time.